Breaking news, the U.S. president has authorized the military buildup of ships, aircraft, and special strike forces in the Caribbean. American fighter jets and bombers fly sorties to intimidate a Latin American strongman accused by Washington of trafficking drugs and rigging elections. There's talk of U.S. troops going in to remove him. I'm not talking about Venezuela today. I'm talking about Panama in 1989.
Fellow citizens, last night I ordered U.S. military forces to Panama. No president takes such action lightly.
For decades, Panamanian President Manuel Noriega was a paid CIA asset, and he was a useful intermediary for covert U.S. operations across Latin America. But by the late 1980s, he had become a liability, deeply involved in cocaine trafficking, money laundering, and after annulling an election he clearly lost, openly defying Washington. When Panamanian forces killed an off-duty U.S. Marine in December 1989, President George H.W. Bush launched Operation Just Cause, sending nearly 28,000 troops and hundreds of aircraft to remove Noriega and protect U.S. citizens in the Canal Zone.
Fighting is still going on in Panama City. The Americans say 19 of their soldiers have been killed and more than 100 wounded.
After Noriega fled to the Vatican's embassy in Panama City, U.S. forces surrounded the building. But instead of going in, they turned the volume up. A fleet of Humvees, mounted with loudspeakers, blasted a deeply ironic playlist of heavy metal music, from The Clash's I Fought the Law to Van Halen's Panama.
The racket outside the embassy clearly angered the Vatican, who called it American harassment. The campaign to use rock music to drive out Noriega went on all night and this morning. It was so loud that even people living a quarter of a mile away had a sleepless night. Conversation was almost impossible.
10 days later, Noriega, an avowed opera lover, surrendered and was extradited to a U.S. prison. Within months, Bush moved on to a much larger crisis in Kuwait. But if President Trump invades Venezuela hoping for a similar quick win, he'll have a rude awakening, because Venezuela doesn't so much resemble Panama in 1989 as it does Iraq in 2003. It's about 12 times larger, and the urban landscape is much denser and more complex than Panama's. Also, U.S. forces didn't really invade Panama. They already had forces and bases and intelligence networks positioned alongside the U.S.-controlled canal. Plus, Panama's military was tiny. It was 12,000 troops in total. Venezuela's armed forces number about 150,000, not to mention an additional 1 million paramilitaries. Maduro has spent the last decade purging disloyal officers and promoting loyalists. It's a military designed for regime survival, even if that means guerrilla warfare. But if a century of U.S. intervention in Latin America has taught us anything, it's the enduring appeal of a bad idea. And as the Trump administration escalates its military strikes off Venezuela's coast, it's clear that the president is seriously considering something further.